In the basic maintenance video, I showed you how to grease the O-rings that need it the most often, which would be the bolt guide front O-ring, the valve front O-ring, the internal firing can O-ring, as well as the bolt sail O-ring. We also put some solenoid oil into these two rear holes. Now, occasionally, maybe yearly, maybe bi-yearly, you want to take this part actually apart so that you can clean it out better and grease it more thoroughly. So we're going to unscrew the bolt guide valve assembly, remove the spring. One area to note is the rear of the valve assembly. These three O-rings control a lot of how the bolt functions. So you want to take some Luxe branded grease, work it into all three of these grooves and on the O-rings. Before doing so, clean off any old grease, dirt, or debris that may have been there from the past. After that whole front section is now complete. We want to access the actual primer that controls the entire cycle of the marker. You can normally get in with your fingers and grab the primer bumper to pull it out. If it's not sticking out enough, you could actually tilt the lift cap and that helps it push it out some. Then I'll grab it, pull the entire primer and primer housing out, pull the primer out of the housing, wipe off any old grease that was there, using a Q-tip to clean the inside of the primer housing. Then I'm going to reapply some Luxe grease onto each of these O-rings, 2 on the primer itself. And then I'm also going to lubricate this middle section of the titanium primer, and that's because it rides inside of an O-ring in the housing. So once I get this entire primer lubricated, I can slide it back into the housing, use the leftover grease for the external O-rings that was on my fingers, slide that entire piece back in, and reassemble my bolt assembly. As noted before, remember to fully tighten this bolt guide and valve assembly onto the rear black section, or else eventually over time it could vibrate loose and affect your shot quality. So that's a nice snug fit. Throw the bolt back into the firing chamber, screw the firing chamber back on, and now your entire bolt assembly is good to go. With the bolt assembly now completely cleaned and greased, we can go deeper and actually get into the solenoid and the regulator. To do that, we want to first remove the front grip. In other videos I showed you before how I use the barrel usually as leverage, so I'm not clamping these pieces together and making it harder to pull apart. I'll show you another slight trick, is if I just put my thumb into where the barrel screws in, it effectively does the same thing. So I'm putting my thumb in and sliding down on the grip. A little harder than with the barrel on, but still very doable. Once that's removed, I can remove the back strap and the grip. I'm going to unplug the solenoid. And there's one 3/32 Allen key screw holding the frame onto the gun. I'm going to break that loose, unscrewing it. Set that aside. From here, the frame pivots away and off. At this point, if I just want to make sure that a little more lubrication gets into the solenoid, I can put a couple drops directly into the solenoid housing. Now, if I want to go farther and actually remove the solenoid and clean it and grease it with our grease instead of the lubricant, I would take the left side of the grip frame, take something small and push this pin out. It's retained by the O-ring, so it's not a hard fit. With the solenoid already unplugged, I can lift it gently outside of the frame. Set my frame aside. And there's now 4 screws that hold this solenoid in place so that I can get into the piston inside. I want to unscrew all 4 screws. First these 2, and I can set that section of the solenoid aside. Now I'll remove the top screws and this mounting plate, and this whole solenoid piston will push out through that side. At this point, I can clean it off and grease it if I need to, and reassemble in backward steps from the way it was assembled. So starting with the top screws, I'm screwing these in, but I'm not snugging them just yet because I want them all to be about the same tension and not fighting each other. So I'm just going in with a loose tighten, put the solenoid body back onto the manifold. Now when I go to the last screw, I'll go and I'll snug that till it's just tight, and I'll go around and snug the remaining 3 screws to the same tightness level. Once that was done, you can bring your frame back in, feed the wires down through the frame. This is the solenoid manifold seal, and that sits inside the frame and seals against the frame body. So we're gonna set that into place. This hole should line up so that you can now take the pin from the right side, the small side first, put it in, and lock it in place. I can now plug the solenoid back in, and the solenoid has been fully maintained. Next, for the advanced maintenance, we're going to take apart the regulator. Now, regulators don't need taken apart that often to be clean and greased. They're pretty self-contained, but if you're playing at a field with a dirty compressor, or that's getting a lot of gunk into your regulator on your marker, then you do want to take it apart and clean it. Or if you're, not consistent over the chrono, or you're starting to get leaks or creeps in the regs, that's when it's time to take it apart. This ASA is held on by 2 3/32 screws, so I will take and remove those. Once removed, the ASA and full regulator assembly comes right out. At the top, you're gonna see this black rubber piece. That is the seal that's actually sealing it against the frame. So that has to be in place or you'd have a major leak. Now to further disassemble this, you would take an adjustable wrench on the flats and unscrew this piston housing. With the piston housing taken apart, I'm gonna set that as, actually, I'm gonna show you how to grease that now. So that's just a spring and a piston. The piston is a little slippery, so it's a little tricky to get out, but you don't wanna mar it up in any way, so just use your fingers. Wipe off the O-rings on the piston, re-grease it. Now, since we don't get into the regulator as much, make sure you grease it heavily, but not too much. Light little coating on the actual body of it. I slide it back into the housing with the thin side facing up. Seat that flush to the bottom, return the spring, and we'll set that aside for later. Now, I'm going to take a 1/8 inch Allen key, the same Allen key that you use to adjust your regulator. Looking at it from this side, clockwise goes in or down on the velocity, counterclockwise goes up or increases the velocity. But to remove this next section, I'm actually gonna screw it in like I'm decreasing my velocity entirely. And that's gonna unthread it from the ASA body. And once that's loose, this entire piece can be removed. That's the rest, this is the rest of the regulator. As you can see, there's a filter here. Mine does have some debris on it. I'm gonna go through, pick any of that off, wipe it off with a rag. I can now pull this brass threaded piece out, and that has the actual seat that your piston is sealing against, so you want to make sure that's clean of any debris. It also has a small spring and ball that allows the gun to vent when you degas it. So this is working fine, so I don't need to do anything else with it, but you just would want to apply light grease here. Whoop. And when you reassemble this, the rubber seat goes into this hole, pops in, take your regulator body, brass threaded piece down. You just want to kind of hold this in place and use your Allen key to screw it back into place. Once this is about flush, you're right around where you need to be for pressure, I can take my thumb, pop that the rest of the way in, and finish the assembly of the regulator. With those simple steps, your regulator's now been maintained, cleaned, and serviced. You'll just go ahead and slap it back onto the body and tighten the two 3/32 screws. Once again, I don't go fully tight on either side until they're both in. That just allows things to align slightly better and not put too much force on one thread over the other. So I'll go ahead and snug this one up. I'll snug this one up. And as you can see, when I did that, my speaker actually came loose. So if you ever see that, these speakers are held in by these couple little knobs here. If yours ever falls out, these pins here press on these pads on the board. So you just want to set it back into place and apply slight pressure to lock it back in. And now it's locked back in place, and I'm ready to reassemble my marker. To reassemble the marker, I'll take the frame, put it into this front groove, pivot it upwards towards the body and hold it together. While I'm holding it together, I'll replace and rethread in the 3/32 set screw. Snug that up so everything is nice and firm in place. At any time, I can put the front grip back on. I can put the bolt back in, and I can put the grip back in. So I'm aligning these 3 tabs into these 3 holes, starting at the top and working my way down to the bottom before I do the other side. Once that's nice and tight, the back strap is on, and the marker is now fully assembled, maintained, and ready to rip.